actually tonight to get on their agenda for 13th. They're intending to vote for the public hearing.
Let's begin.
Which means our public hearing won't be until.
Okay. Just 35, huh?
Did you read Fox Sunday? Or did you?
Okay. I've got so much paper. Okay, we're gonna open the meeting. The first applicant is 35 Market Street. Keep it straight. So, come on down. Okay, and if I understand the process correctly. Yes, I do. Ashley, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. So we received the revised application from the applicant. It included the part 3 as well as some supplemental studies and information. What I provided the board with, and the applicant just got their copy, was recites all of our comments from our previous memo and then identifies how those have been addressed in the current submission. So do you just want me to go one by one through the memo, or?
Well, I guess let me ask the other board members, does anybody have questions concerning the memo that AKRF has prepared?
I understand the memo, I just haven't seen the, a lot of these underlying documents before. This is the first time I've seen it.
We provided them as a PDF for everyone to review prior.
I dug through my emails, could not find them. I dug through them going back like a month and could not find them. Found several other documents pertaining to this project, but not the part 3 stuff.
It was distributed to Ashley, Kathleen, and Al, who I am assumed would have
Well, apparently something fell through the cracks.
go to the rest of the members, and then I know Sean and Andrea had asked for it, so I apologize that you didn't get it, but I would have thought that the HDRB would distribute it to the members of the board. I didn't realize that we needed to give it to each member individually.
Well, I'll have to take a look. I thought it was distributed to all the board members, but I guess,
Wasn't it in Dropbox?
Yeah, it was updates to a Dropbox folder that
on
we
one
already
point
have
two
access
eight.
to.
Yeah.
I don't know anything but a Dropbox folder.
I'm simply stating
Okay.
fact.
all right. That being the case, I guess, what is it you're looking for, the underlying documents that are part of this? Am I correct?
Well, the documents that address the part 3.
Right.
And in there is the phase 1 archaeological study, the New York State National Heritage Program document.
That I got. That I got separate.
Letters from the structural engineer, and then our draft response to the part 3. So.
Well, let's do it this way. Then perhaps it would be best if you did go point by point, and we can go over this stuff, and then we'll see if we feel we're ready to go for a public hearing. Because ultimately, that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Can I just ask a question? Do you see it as a responsibility to distribute? I mean, it came to the board and to Ashley. I find it a little frustrating at this point to think that we can't move forward because the documents received 2 weeks ago weren't distributed to the members of the board. So I'd like to be able to move forward tonight.
Yes, and I think that we're all in agreement on that. I'd have to go back and check to see about the emails as far as distribution. All right, so Ashley,
Sure. So the full EAF has been provided, which is consistent with the secret requirements for a type 2 action. The revisions to the EAF Part 1 have been addressed. The item regarding the floodplain has been addressed. There's no new structures proposed within the floodplain. Number 4, this was one of the ones that had required follow-up. The applicant did reach out to the New York Natural Heritage Program, which identified the following threatened or endangered species within the project area, and that's the bald eagle, the short-nosed sturgeon, the Atlantic sturgeon, the timber rattlesnake, and northern long-eared bat. The 2 sturgeon species are because of its proximity to the Hudson River. Those are not actually found on the project site. Because of its suburban location, it's unlikely that timber rattlesnake would be found on the project site. The northern long-eared bat, there is a tree clearing restriction associated with that species. There should be no tree clearing between November 1st and March 31st, and that the applicant has agreed to comply with. And the bald eagle, this is also an issue for 126 Main. It's not likely to be found on the project site itself. It's likely to be found on Constitution Island. And the minimal nature of the project in terms of its construction footprint, it's unlikely to affect the bald eagle. The EAF mapper had identified this as being a potentially archaeologically sensitive site. The applicant did provide a phase 1 archaeological study, which was reviewed by ACRAF's archaeologists. She found that the report was drafted to meet the state requirements, and she found that the conclusions of the phase 1 study provided a reasonable basis for determination or seeker that the proposed project is not likely to result in any significant adverse impacts on archaeological resources. Regarding the historic resources, previously we commented that it looked like the structure had been moved here, possibly wasn't originally constructed on the site, and had asked for some additional investigation. That investigation has been provided. It's still not quite clear where the structure came from originally. Another issue that had been raised was whether or not the building could be raised onto a new foundation instead of being demolished and reconstructed as was proposed by the applicant. Following the last meeting that I was present at, the applicant had opened up some of the walls, and their structural engineer met with our subconsultant Silman, who's our structural engineer, and evaluated the structure, and that report is attached to this. And upon that inspection, he found that the structure was not as in good shape as we had originally observed from the exterior, and it was his opinion that it would be more costly to raise the structure than it would be to reconstruct the structure, which is what the applicant had said originally. Because the building would be dismantled or demolished as part of the proposed project, if the applicant's proposal is approved, it is recommended that the structure be recorded during dismantling, and that the recordation document be given to a local historical society or library. And that's consistent with the recommendation that we had provided for 126 Main. In terms of the construction considerations, we had noted previously that it is on a small hill with some exposed rock, and had recommended some erosion and sediment control measures during construction, and that comment has been addressed.
Do any of the board members have questions?
I think that it was sufficient. I wasn't left with any other outstanding issues from my reading of it.
How about you, Andrea?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Do you have any questions for at least what you've heard?
No. I mean, the memo was clear.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, do I have a motion that we go to a public hearing on for this application?
I would move that we go to a public hearing as part of the secret process.
Do I have a second?
I will second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 No,
Aye. All right, so we'll schedule a public hearing. Question is that when do we have it?
I think we have a free Wednesday in June, judging from our calendar.
Okay.
This would require the same public meeting notice as any other, public hearing
Mm-hmm.
of a 2 week. And today's Thursday.
Okay, so our regular meeting is on the 7th,
No, that's a
That's
special meeting.
14.
A regular, it's on 14.
14th. Okay. So the 7th wouldn't give us the 2 weeks, so the 21st?
I'm sorry.
Would we not be able to conduct this public hearing as part of our regular meeting, or would we need a separate day for it?
Well, I think a lot of it depends on the agenda that we have on the 7th.
The 14th.
Huh?
The 14th.
Or 14th, yes, I keep 7th for some reason sticking in my head.
We're also meeting on the 7th, but that's,
Uh,
so the 14th is our next public meeting, which would be 2 publication cycles from today.
Mhm.
I don't know what that agenda is like.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're talking February 7th.
14th.
February 14th.
Oh, okay, yeah.
At the worst, I mean, the otherwise, we could do it on the following Wednesday, which would be the 21st, where we don't currently have a meeting schedule, so it would be the only agenda item.
I mean, my only question is, do you have the 2 weeks if you, because we've already missed today's publication, right? So if you do put it in Monday, it goes out Wednesday, so that's only a week, right? Is that-
But the
But the
the
meeting.
paper is published on Wednesdays, so
Right, so it would
if
be
we have a meeting
published-
Wednesday night, that's the second publication.
Okay, so if you have it on the 14th, it would work? 'Cause- okay,
Mhm.
all right.
Yeah, because there'd be one paper on the 7th, and then one paper on the 14th, and the meeting would be the night of the 14th, so that's,
And that's your normal course, right? It's not unusual for you guys to schedule public hearings 2 weeks out?
it's not uncommon.
Right. Okay, and there's no mailing requirement?
No.
Is there a mailing requirement for the
Yeah.
applicant? And what's that, what is that, 7 to 10 days? I don't see anything in the code.
It would be the same, like, all of our public hearings have a mailing requirement, and it's just that they be sent,
Registered.
yeah, so as long as they were sent,
well, this is,
essentially
you're
this
talking about a
weekend.
secret public hearing, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think this would be for both. I think this would be for secret and the underlying application. You don't have to have a secret hearing, but a lot of boards like to have a public hearing before they issue their either negative or positive declaration.
Right. Which is the secret hearing.
But it could be combined.
It could,
hearing.
it's a combined, it's a combined hearing, and you'll take comments on secret, you'll take comments on the underlying application, you know, you'll take it all in.
Okay.
well, if that's the case, then I think we should do it on the 21st,
Okay.
to give us an extra week,
Right.
to have everything prepared.
Ashley, does the 21st work for you?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So, we'll have a public hearing on the 21st. I think you know the mailing notifications that need to go out.
Return receipt,
Yeah.
certified mail.
It's certified, right, not registered, 'cause that's
It's
what
the
we.
postcard
Certified,
one.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure that we're doing the right thing, 'cause sometimes it changes at the different boards.
Okay. We'll check into as far as all of the underlying documents, and if there's anything that you still want to see, let me know, and I'll let Beth know, and she can forward it to you. or at least make it available at the village office, because some of them I think are pretty big documents.
Oh, they are, I mean, so as far as what we've submitted to the board,
This.
such as, you know, this and this, do we need to make copies and submit them to Jeff, or how does that work?
Well, I think that certainly this needs to be on file with Jeff, because this is the underlying application.
There should be a full hard copy set of everything. you
Yeah,
submitted.
anytime you submit anything to this
Everything
board,
we
you should always
submitted-
copy the village clerk, cause he's the
It's
keeper of the
important for the
records.
record that we have the full.
We've given all of it to
Has,
Jeff.
Okay.
yes,
I've
I've
gotten
given
everything.
them all, but,
And it's such a big document that's why we did it as a Dropbox, so,
I had
maybe if
no
we
idea
did-
it was sent to a
I
Dropbox.
understand that, but if we send you the Dropbox links, or if they send you the Dropbox link, will that be?
well, but she has the material.
Well, I'm not carrying this home tonight, I don't know.
Okay,
So is
so I
that, is
can,
that yes? If
Yeah,
we send you
yeah, the link
Dropbox
is
link,
fine.
okay.
The link is fine, as long as I know where to find it.
okay, so distribution will be made via Dropbox and hard copies to Jeff of everything, just to make sure that everything has been kept on file.
Okay, and you'll send Carolyn a link to the Dropbox?
Yes.
Okay. Sounds like a
Okay,
plan.
thank you.
So
Thank you.
it will be the full application, public hearing, as well as the secret public hearing, one go.
Yep.
Cool.
Who prepares the notice, who prepares the public notice?
Well, we would.
Okay. Who,
In other words, the notice that's published in the paper.
Yeah.
That's normally, Jeff.
Jeff prepares it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so on our,
And
Were you gonna coordinate with
Uh,
him?
if you have a certain words that you want to see, send it to me
I'll
or
follow up with him.
Kathleen, and we'll get it over to Jeff.
I'll just have Jeff send me a copy and then I'll review it before it goes out.
Okay. Good.
so on our application, we had all of the neighbors that had to be, notified. So there's no other, just the ones that are on the application, is that correct?
Yeah.
Nobody else has to be, there's
So,
no.
well, everybody,
Right.
contiguous to the property.
Are there any additional secret filings that have to be made? Any notifications?
No, not for the public hearing. Once the determination of significance has been made, then that will need to be circulated to all the involved and interested agencies and published in the environmental notice bulletin.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Carolyn, I just forwarded the thing to you, in case.
Okay.
Switching files.
Switching files. Yeah, notes and notes.
I read the whole thing, pretty legible.
Okay. And I guess, you can release the memo to the applicant as far as 35 Market
Yeah,
Street.
we already.
Okay,
we
I
took
can't
one.
do a hard copy.
Yeah.
Michael Mills, taking our minutes for us, so he just asked that, everyone presenting right now, if you could say your names so he can hear and jot down your names.
Hi, Michael, I'm Karen Parks.
He knows me.
Sue Costigan,
Could you spell your last name?
C-O-S-T-I-G-A-N.
I'm sorry, C-O-S,
C-O-S-T-I-G-A-N.
my bad ears.
Yeah, right, well,
Lennon wants.
Bad and bad eyes and all that stuff. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Long time no see.
Okay, Ashley, you're up.
Sure. So it's the same thing with this application. They did submit a revised document, EAF, and supplemental studies. I provided the board with a copy of my memo from the last meeting. The previous comments are identified in italics. The new comments are identified in bold. Starting at number 1, they have provided the full EAF consistent with the seeker requirements for a type 1 action. As I mentioned, because these projects are all in the same area, it's the same species that were identified, except one more species was identified for this site, and that was the fence lizard. This applicant did follow up with DEC directly, and DEC noted that the only species with potential to exist on this site were the bald eagle and the northern long-eared bat. They did identify a tree clearing restriction of November 1st to November 30th, and that's because of an overlap between the two species. The applicant followed up with DEC with a letter demonstrating that their site is of sufficient distance from where we suspect the bald eagle habitat to be, and demonstrating that it would be unlikely for this project to have any impact on that species. And they have agreed to the tree clearing restriction for the northern long-eared bat, which is goes through. They are allowed to clear through March 31st. I found, and the natural resources consultant at ACARE, I found that their argument was reasonable. I don't think we've heard back from DEC yet.
No,
but
they have acknowledged receipt and they're studying it, but I have not heard back.
But given its Main Street location, it's unlikely that it would have any effect on that species. In terms of historic resources, they did provide an evaluation and salvage plan, which ACAREF's historians reviewed and found that it sufficiently documents the history of the structure, and ACAREF concurs with its conclusions. The salvage plan does recommend that the building be recorded and documented during dismantling, and we recommend that a commitment be made that the recordation document be given to a local historical society or library. Previously, we had discussed whether any of the timbers or the bay window or cornices could be reused in the new structure. It was unclear from this current submission whether or not that is something the applicant is still considering. There was a letter from Jay Brennan in attachment 3.14 that addresses the reuse of the framing as it could potentially be cost prohibitive, but that document seemed to be more specific to the timbers and didn't specifically address the cornice, so that wasn't clear what your intention is.
Can you clarify that point?
Yes, I can. Our intention is to salvage the front cornice, bracket details, to the extent feasible, and reuse it on the new facade. And that was actually indicated on updated architectural plans, which were submitted on December 13th at our meeting and presented at that time. And in addition, our intent was to also salvage the brackets on the bay window.
Okay.
The entire bay window structure itself, we don't foresee being able to remove from the structure and attach to the new structure as one complete unit. However, we would like to save defining features such as the brackets and reuse those.
Okay.
So that was fine.
And we did actually give a list in Carla's report of a list of items that we are gonna remove and salvage, whether we reuse them or, they go somewhere else. There is a report of that.
Okay.
Any questions from the board members?
Not so
I don't
far.
have a question so much as a comment. I thought Carlos Ciello's report was very well done, and certainly as a recommendation for, reusing or salvaging or, repurposing somewhere else, I thought it was quite thoughtful.
And she was really interesting to meet and watch her work.
So I'm told.
Yeah.
In terms of number 3, with the orientation of the building on Main Street, the proposed project maintains that orientation. In the site plan section, the applicant did update sheet C-103 to include the lot and bulk table as requested. The parking requirements were provided on sheet C-103, so that comment has also been sufficiently addressed. Sheet C-105 includes some conceptual landscaping, but we typically recommend that a more detailed plan be provided, something that identifies the botanical species and size of planting. But this is a comment that we feel can be addressed by the planning board and is not required for this board to make a secret determination. The snow storage areas have now been identified on the plan. Another thing that I would note in terms of how the plan has changed since I was last with this board, they have removed the shed from the plan. And as I get into more detail in the stormwater section, they have changed the parking lot area. It had previously been proposed as pavement. It is now proposed as a pervious paving gravel paver system. So they are showing a net reduction in impervious surface on the site at this time. So some of our previous comments are either no longer applicable or are now modified to address that change. So that, I just covered that in number 1. In terms of stormwater management, the site is less than an acre, the disturbance area is less than an acre, so it is not required to get a general permit for stormwater discharges for construction activity. So that comment has been addressed. They had previously shown some infiltration trenches on the site, and those are no longer proposed, so we no longer require the sizing calculations. We did notice that a drywall had been added to the plans, but it does not appear to be for surface water runoff. It appears to be for the discharge from the building footing drains and sump pump. Is that correct? We had noted previously that the stormwater discharge location should be designed to be non-erosive, and they have shown a riprap outlet for the French drain. We previously requested an analysis of the peak flow rates of stormwater discharge from the site as compared to existing conditions. That was not provided. The plans have been revised to reduce the amount of impervious surface. However, an analysis of peak flow rates should still be provided to understand how the proposed gravel parking area will affect post-construction peak flows. So we would still like to see those calculations. And I did get an email from the planning board chairman that with a clarification that the brook that they had mentioned in their previous memo was intended to be Back Brook. It is still an unregulated stream, but it does eventually drain to the Hudson River. They did provide a phase 1 archaeological study. We found that study was drafted to meet the state requirements, and that the conclusions of the study provide a reasonable basis for a determination under SECR that the proposed project is not likely to result in any significant adverse impacts to archaeological resources.
Any questions from the board members?
No, it's clear.
I just have one comment. The maps in the back are so reduced that there's a lot of fine detail in there. It really requires a magnifying glass. It's insane. You know, so it was a little hard to read.
Well, they're just meant for easy
No, I know
reference,
it's meant
and you
for
have other
being
copies.
able to put it in a book, right?
Okay. We have the members of the planning board here. Do they have any questions for the applicants at this particular point?
If the plans have been changed, if we can get a copy of them, or several copies of them, that way we have it on file too, I think would be helpful.
Right.
Can I ask, so they're large plans, they're that size and there are 7 of them. do you need a large set for every member of the planning
I
board?
mean, even if it's a reduced set, like we
No, I think
had
we're trying to
previously.
change that now, actually, to go to a couple sets and then digital.
Okay,
But
So
we're not quite there yet. Could you do 3?
3?
Yeah, that's plenty.
And would your board, I'm sorry, would your board also like a couple of large sets so you can look at them?
No, I think that basically most of what was addressed, what needs to be addressed, you know, was done in verbal form so that the maps, while nice to have and I strain my eyes looking at them, it's not a
Okay.
So my question to you, Matt, is that do you guys feel you're gonna need a public hearing for your process?
John, what do you think about a combined public, I mean, they're kind of hard to, because you have different focus. I know we've discussed this several
Mhm.
times.
Well,
I know with like the prior applicant, like, you know, we had said we'd waive it, because
Mhm.
there's so few issues. This obviously does have issues that the
Right.
planning board needs to address.
Right.
Um,
So, I mean, it's, have they appeared before the planning board yet for any type of review? They submitted an application?
yeah, we did, is it 2 workshops?
Yeah, we've had,
Yeah.
at least 2 meetings. And, as,
I mean, are you guys comfortable for a public hearing yet? I mean, you can always do 2 separate
It sounds
public
like
hearings.
they changed
They
the
changed
plan.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'd
we
have
could
to, we
for us
could,
to-
oh, you're right. Oh, you mean if they would decide tonight? No.
Right.
No.
So, I mean, they can always do their public hearing. Obviously, you guys are allowed to comment. And, you know, they can decide based upon the comments whether they want to close, you know, their public hearing, and you can still have your public hearing at a later date.
And
Doesn't
you're
preclude-
voting on demolition only at this public hearing?
No, this would be the whole application.
The whole thing.
No, it'd be the whole thing.
Yeah.
oh, secret and certificate of appropriateness?
Yes.
Well,
Wait,
the issue is that part of the secret is that we are approving what you're proposing to replace the building with. So, I would assume that, I guess let me ask the, board members, do we wanna hold off on, as far as the certificate until we look at it a little bit more closely?
Well, I have a.
What you could always do is you could close the public hearing with respect to SECRA and then keep it open with respect to the underlying application. If you're not comfortable with making the underlying decision, but maybe you're comfortable with making your SECRA determination.
Well,
Where does that leave
John,
the
I
planning
have a-
boards with the lead agency already taking a final determination?
Well, they have to act, they're the lead agency before you guys can act, so that would
Right,
then.
and no, I know we can't act before them, that I know.
Right. So that would actually allow you guys to then start proceeding if they issue a negative declaration.
Okay.
See, the thing is that we have to act on the secret application.
Right.
But that doesn't, you know, so once we act on that, then you can act on your particular, on the application before
The
you.
review.
So, I mean, I would suggest if you're not comfortable deciding on the certificate of appropriateness, just close it with respect to secret comments and keep it open with respect to the certificate issues that may or may not exist.
But you'll
Well,
notice
combine-
that you're hearing everything, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Combining it makes a lot of sense to me because, in my experience, people are not gonna say on page 3.2 there's a typo. There may be one person out there. What they're gonna want to see is the plans, the elevations. They want to so they want. I know we're going to the planning board for the site plan. They're gonna want to see the site plan. They're gonna want to see the elevations. They're gonna want to talk about that, and this is, I don't think this is technically required, because it's your decision to do it.
Yeah.
But it's, so, if, you know, we're really hoping to get in the ground, and to get in the ground, we really hope to get those trees cut down by April 1st, provided we get that letter. Speaking of which, one question we have, which I'll come back to, is that we know we're prohibited from taking the tree down until we get secret closed. Are we prohibited from taking the tree down in between?
No. if you don't have a certificate of appropriateness, you can take the trees down. We don't do trees.
Mm.
I think, yeah, I mean, that ultimately might be up to the planning board.
Right. Good
That
point.
would be the planning
Yeah.
board's decision, which, you know,
Okay.
I don't know what you guys have done in the past, I don't know if that's ever been posed to you guys in the past, but,
That's some pretty
it's up to the
historic
board,
trees,
the
yeah.
planning board.
I don't think these are very big trees, are they?
No, they're
No,
not,
they're
they're
really
weed trees.
They're weeds.
Yeah, they're weeds, right, you know, like, you know, like big saplings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Norway
exactly what
maples
they
are
are.
invasive. Yeah.
Okay,
Well, so I would hope you would just have hope.
well, and let me ask, let me ask the board members, do we feel we have enough information about the proposed new construction to also vote on a certificate of appropriateness?
I don't feel comfortable with that.
Well, the last time we met was on the 13th,
Of December, right?
and has the plan, the drawing has changed at
The-
all since? I don't wanna put you on the spot of
Yeah,
having to.
the plan has not changed at all.
Okay.
Our intent was to provide typical things you asked for with
Mhm.
that packet, like window cuts and, lighting, things like that, which can certainly be provided if we were to go to a public hearing together, and as John said, if you felt you needed more information and you wanted to keep the public hearing open, I feel confident by the time we go to the public hearing, I can have, you know, I've appeared enough to know like kind of what you're expecting, so I feel I can have a pretty thorough list, and if there should be something lingering.
All right, how about this, let me throw this out, because we do have a meeting on the 14th.
Right.
So maybe we can schedule 126 Main Street for,
Continuing.
well,
Workshop?
dealing specifically with the HDRB issues. So that if there is other information that we want them to provide, they can then provide it at the public hearing.
So on the 14th, we would have a workshop session for
Right.
126 Main? Okay.
And then the public hearing would be scheduled for the 21st of February.
But the one issue I have with that is then we're looking at a month out for the secret public hearing, which means we really can't proceed with planning board till then either, so.
Well, it's only
No, you
three,
can,
it's
I
only
mean,
3 weeks from tonight, right?
but-
21st?
But then it's a 2-week,
Well, there's no reason why we can't continue with the HDRB review. We just can't act until the secret process is finished. In other words, we can't vote on a certificate of appropriateness until secret is addressed.
Does your
Right.
board have a policy of voting on an action the same night as closing a public hearing?
Usually that's what we do, yeah.
So theoretically, you could have your neg deck, on the 21st of February.
right, so I guess my question is, if you, the scenario you presented previously, which is go to the public hearing, and if we still need to discuss certificate of appropriateness, keep that part open, but vote on the secret, then we have kind of, we're ready to go with planning and zoning without any holdups. If, you know, if for some reason you still need more information, I don't wanna keep putting off the secret, so I'd rather have the public hearing scheduled earlier for both, and then come back with more materials.
That's what we're talking about. I mean, the 21st is the first date that's available.
So you wouldn't hold it on the 14th?
14th, we have our regular meeting, and it usually for these two applications, I want to leave enough time so that if we do have public comment, that it can be heard. And so I'd rather keep it on a separate date, separate from our regular meeting.
Okay, so it would be 1 week after that.
Yeah.
But
And
we
then it
got-
would also give us the 14th to review with you guys one more
Mhm.
time, everything that you have for the
Okay,
C of A.
but we'd advertise it before, the public hearing before the 14th.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, has to be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Then also you have to do the notifications of the adjacent properties.
Right, and can I just ask, will all board members be available on the 21st? that's important to us in terms of quorum.
We have
My
quorum with
crystal
three.
ball isn't that good, I'm sorry, I have no idea.
I can't speak for Kathleen, but I'm free.
Okay.
I'll be there.
Okay, so clarification question for you, John. My
Mhm.
understanding is a quorum is 3, however, we need a majority of the board for approval, is that correct? So if
Right.
only 3 members show
We
up,
need all
all
three.
3 have to be in
Yes.
favor. Okay. So you can see why it's important that we know in advance how many members are going to be there.
I have a question, and please forgive me if this feels like 101 to you all. I'm interested to know how is the C of A decision that you're going to make separate from the seeker?
Yes.
Is the C of A including, is that where the question of demolition comes in? Because my understanding is that this is a packaged sort of a presentation, it's a
Right, the
proposal
secret decision includes what they're proposing, the demolition, and what they're replacing it with. And that is what we'll be voting on,
And
as
so-
far as the secret process.
And so insofar as, what is the relationship then between voting to, I guess if you're voting on a neg deck, that my 101 understanding is that indicates an endorsement of the removal of the building, the demolition.
Not necessarily. It's
No.
a negative declaration. All they're saying is that this project doesn't require the preparation of an environmental impact statement.
Okay,
Which
understood.
is usually
Okay.
multiple volumes.
Got it.
It
Okay.
doesn't necessarily mean they have to approve the project. I mean, you can issue a neg deck and still deny a project. But all they're really saying is, we don't feel that this project creates any significant,
Got it.
or the potential for any significant environmental impacts.
But with
It's
respect
really a
to,
procedural step.
but with respect to the question of view shed and village character, right, and the loss of a historic structure, that's part of the impact. So the assumption is then that to make a determination, should that determination be a negative deck, you determine that any or all of those impacts can be mitigated, right? That's the only way you could actually issue your final determination.
Right.
You'd have to have considered the full packet.
Yes, so the seeker is kind of like a high-level analysis from 10,000 feet up.
Right.
And then generally they're saying, hey, we think this won't have any environmental impacts. Then when they get to the underlying application, the certificate of appropriateness, that's where they go into the details and all the factors that are set forth in the code.
How is that, how is the mitigation of the loss of historic fabric and alteration of the view shed, how is that distinguished from the question of whether or not a demolition is appropriate? Because they seem to be the same thing, but just sort of talked about using different language. And so if on the one hand someone says, all right, we're issuing a neg deck, and that means that we don't see that this is an unmitigatable impact,
Mm-hmm.
but then you move to your public hearing and you assess the appropriateness of the proposal, which includes demolition, then how is it that discussion of demolition would have any standing at that point? How could you?
Because they have code requirements that they have to review, so they'll look at the specific code requirements in the historic regulations.
Yes,
And it may be very similar to the same kind of requirements they look at under SECRA. So, yeah, I mean, it's certainly a step in the right direction for the applicant if they get the negative declaration, but it's not.
Well, I'm not judging, I'm just
Well,
I'm just
can
trying
I
to distinguish.
add a little bit in?
Mm-hmm.
The idea is to identify the impacts
Yes.
that will occur, and some of them, even with a neg deck, are unavoidable.
Mhm.
They're gonna happen. If you had an historic building,
Which we do.
which we do, but if we had a historic building that was so bad that if you didn't remove it, it was gonna become a danger to the public, the weight of removing that is unavoidable. You gotta do it because of public health and safety and welfare. Just has to be done. And
Is
this
that-
is, that, you know, you can't leave something standing that's gonna hurt people.
Oh, I
Okay, I
understand
mean
that.
in a generic
Is that
sense,
a-
I'm talking
yeah.
about, okay? Here we have a building that people working, lived in, probably could work and live in for some period of time, and it needs, but it is going to go eventually. That's been clarified.
Oh, we're all headed in that direction,
Yeah, right,
sir.
yeah. Some of us sooner than
Yeah,
others. So we talk about, well, what can we do to preserve what that has to offer? We're not required to preserve everything it has to offer. And that's mitigation. And that mitigation comes in terms of the studies that were done here by Carla, that was commented upon, the architectural historic, to know what's there. So we have a record of that that's already made. That concluded that we're gonna go into the building as it's being taken down. We're going to journalize, photographic journal probably, of the pieces as it's being taken apart and getting the more important, so see how people did things, to see how the history of how things were built, can be discovered in some other way. That asset is not lost. And reusing some of the parts of the building. All of those mitigate that impact that is judged to be unavoidable, but we mitigate it to the greatest practical extent. That greatest practical doesn't mean, it's not the greatest possible extent.
I guess I wasn't focused on the interior.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
that's
it's
not,
the
to me,
whole,
that's not view
okay.
shed, so
So then
documenting the
it's-
interior,
So the view shed is the same sort of thing. Okay, it's gonna affect the view shed. There's a building there now that you can see as you're walking down Main Street, and you're not gonna see it when it's not there,
This is true.
right? So,
Like so
those things about the photo document have to do with outside, and, okay, so if the building were to continue to deteriorate in that same state, that would impact the view shed too. So, one of the things would be to fix the building up, prohibitively expensive and not worth it structurally, we know that.
Do we?
No,
Yeah,
we
we
don't,
do.
we technically don't.
Okay, we don't, technically, okay.
We don't technically know it's,
We haven't voted on that, right? I mean, that's not something.
That
we
is
don't-
your, I
that's not
understand,
what
I
we're
respect
discussing
that,
well,
today.
that's the
okay,
applicant's
you
position.
haven't come to that conclusion.
Yeah, I don't know that we
Okay.
should be,
haven't,
I don't
and
think we should be
think we should be
drawing
clear.
into, you know, I mean,
I
obviously
was
it's your,
simply asking
yeah,
for a distinction.
these are all your decisions. We just wanna kind of understand where it kind of dovetails
Procedurally?
into the planning board procedurally.
Yeah.
Because obviously, or let me just take a step back, and speaking in general terms, you could issue a negative deck and still make a determination that you wouldn't allow the demolition to proceed and the municipality would not be at risk? Okay, that's just, and that's not any forbear,
Well,
I'm just,
well,
I'm a risk,
but
I'm a risk mitigation
I
guy.
mean, it depends
So I
on,
mean,
but
it's gonna depend on why they deny it. I mean, you know, you can't
understood,
be-
yeah,
you know.
no, it can't be, obviously it can't be
But,
arbitrary.
I mean, they look at the
capricious, and can't
statutory
go,
factors, and that's, you know, that's what
Okay.
they have
Like
to
the
rely
years of the
on.
country homes.
You know, I just wanted to understand procedurally how it all fits in.
okay.
So,
So I guess, getting back to the original question, do you guys want to participate in the public hearing? Well, or you want it separate?
We could maybe meet with the planning board before the 21st too, and workshop with you. I don't know when
Can you
your next
get
planning board.
the materials?
you have the
Yeah.
materials
Yeah,
tomorrow morning.
Yeah, we
Everything's
can
all
get the
together.
materials and
For the,
We're not
So-
meeting tomorrow, but we're meeting the
The eighth.
following week, yeah, the 8th.
We could
that
do that.
works for me.
I could have the
So we
materials to
could-
you tomorrow.
We could workshop with you tomorrow and,
In fact, I'll give you the
No,
ones
not
on the
tomorrow.
board tonight.
I mean, sorry, the next, but
All
I
right.
didn't mean tomorrow either. I can't work with you.
Let me do it this way, do I have a motion from our board that, we, go to a public hearing on this application
For February 21st.
for February 21st?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so, we're gonna have a public hearing on the 21st. If you guys want to, we can have a joint public hearing, just, I guess let us know so that we can make sure that the public
Well, we-
notice.
You'd have to have enough time to have notice.
No.
If you're meeting on the 8th,
Yeah.
you're not gonna
That's
have
not
time.
enough.
Yeah, it won't work.
You
Yeah.
can certainly attend the public hearing and offer your comments.
Yeah, that's fine.
Either
We'll do that.
before, either as a board or as individuals. If you wanna
Well,
issue
as
a
board,
letter.
would that be helpful to the, you, I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I think that the part that we, is the most difficult for us to address is the historic resources. And I think that you guys would be dealing with things other than that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so, the public hearing is scheduled for the 21st.
Very good.
Now, I guess since we do have both applicants here, I think that for this public hearing, because I think that the public would be interested in all of the, you should have a good presentation as far as the issues and why you feel what you're proposing is the best mitigation of the issues, so that the public can understand what it is that you're talking about. Okay?
Okay.
Is this document one which can or should be made available to the public?
Yes,
It
it
is.
should.
Must be.
There are,
Yeah,
we dropped
there
off a
Okay.
copy.
Yeah, we gave you a bunch of copies.
As a matter of fact, we should probably get a couple copies with the village clerk. Okay?
So I know
Do you
that-
want us to put you on the agenda for the 14th?
Yes, please, that would be great.
Okay. And Ashley, you're gonna be there at the, this public hearing?
I'll come for the public hearing, but it's the meeting on the 14th, which is focused on the historic.
Yeah,
Workshop.
no, that's-
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll skip that one.
John, are you gonna be there on the 14th?
21st.
21st. Focus has shifted from the 7th to the 14th. Okay. All right.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you in a couple weeks.
Okay. Is it Valentine's Day?
Bev,
Yeah.
is there anything else that you
Compared to
would want to
5
discuss
last
design-wise on the
So everyone bring
14th?
your
I feel like
dates.
Yeah. Chocolates, you got it.
we reviewed everything.
Nothing has changed.
Okay.
I think you've seen everything, has it changed, minor changes, which are, I'll submit, documents, that have minor changes to them.
Okay. If you change your mind, then just let Kathleen know if you want to put on the agenda for the 14th as well.
I don't think it's necessary, because, unless you would like us to talk, if you would,
Well, let's do it that way. I guess I'll ask the board members to take a look
Does
at the
Ashley need to be
material.
here if we have to close the meeting?
Take a look at the materials for 35 Market
35.
Street and see if there are things that you want to talk to them about on the 14th.
Okay, wait, I'm sorry, take a look at.
We're just wondering whether they
Yeah.
would also want to come on the 14th to
Oh.
review any design
and you don't
elements,
have to-
since we're doing
So
their
just go into
secret
the folder
CA
and read it.
Calculations on the
Yeah.
drainage.
It was, so it's this.
Yeah, we really do need, I just wasn't sure if we did the actual order. Okay.
You don't.
drawings that are.
I think it's just one, there's
Just an extra copy. And it has just a few more details.
wouldn't be fair if we
in it,
held our
but
consultants
if you
hostage
want-
for the duration of our meeting.
If you want this, and I can give you more copies tomorrow, that way, if there's something you wanna discuss on the 14th.
I think the only things that might be outstanding are, the little cut sheet items, the windows, the doors, the lighting.
Yeah, those are.
Those you actually have there already.
They were in
Here,
the
there is
one,
one
the big
here.
one, yeah.
And there's a few things
I
like
remember seeing that.
some
So do you want us to present?
letters and things that we've added into it, but
it's been a while.
I mean, those were updated in
Yeah,
Dropbox.
let's do that, because we changed.
Yeah,
the-
right? Okay, yeah.
Gutters, not in Dropbox, that was after that.
Okay.
That I
So we'll be looking at pictures.
fixed the eve detail and put that sort of thing in, so.
So you went to
Harvard Survey.
I guess check with Jack to see if he
I would say there's a
can,
lot of
waive
enthusiasm
that.
down there.
And
If
make
you
sure
do
it's
something
got
and then you hear
complete
parking
sense,
spaces,
so,
access for
people
the
can
cars.
They haven't burned themselves out yet?
No, it's all very enthusiastic.
So there's a very small.
Yeah, I don't think so. So I'm gonna take this hard copy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, catch up with that.
Thank you.
Are we adjourned yet?
Do we have any additional questions for?
Okay.
So, maybe after.
No.
Actually, you brought up a good point. What I could do is I could draft a neg deck, and then that way you guys can have it before the public hearing on the 21st. And we'll have time to review it, you know, obviously you don't have to
Yeah.
adopt on it, adopt it if you're not comfortable with it, but at least you'll have it for you handy.
Okay, yes, please.
Thank you.
No pressure, you know,
I know,
No, no,
just
just
need
there.
to look at
just
it.
to kind of identify the issues that you need to look at.
Yeah.
And to look at.
The motion, but you're right, I probably should have sent you a quick email just to make sure that John didn't have the issue. We didn't,
Thank you.
but we did make a motion to waive it.
Thank you, Ashley.
So do what, do
Yeah, I
what?
have from you, so yours is,
So moved.
And in fact,
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Motion to adjourn,
I
Carolyn.
think that if you.
Andrea Connor seconded. Canard.
It's supposed to go right back where it was. We'll look
It
at
passed
that.
unanimously.
Right, you know, the apartment changing into.
Yeah. Because it's like they're
The village
really
kept up with the
odd,
site
kind of
plan,
odd.
so-